Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar today. So we would like to present to you the work that we have done in the Nudge project, where we aim to support behavior change in households. As you can read, this presentation is titled How to Support Efficient Heating and Cooling by Profiling and Nudging Energy Consumers, meaning that we have developed an understanding that can be useful to policymakers about how to profile different types of energy consumers and how to use nudging interventions to help modify behaviors when it comes to heating and cooling. We have focused on the very critical role of heating and cooling energy demand because it is a very important contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and energy dependency. So my name is Philippos Anagnostopoulos. I'm a senior expert at the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, IECP, and also coordinate the Nudge project. This work that we are presenting today is not only done by me, it's actually quite a few colleagues. So I would like to acknowledge my colleagues and their organizations. So a lot of thanks goes to Peter Conradi and Stephanie Van Hoff from IMEC, Mercouris Karaliopoulos and his team from AUEB, and also Niklas Reinfeldt and Heike Brücher from Fraunhofer. Let's start with a little bit of context about heating demand in the EU. Now, we know that the biggest share of household energy consumption in Europe is for space heating, and that's an average of 63% in the European Union and can be as high as 80% in Luxembourg. And even in regions that have warmer climates, like Portugal that you see here in the graph, space heating still accounts for a very significant portion of energy consumption at 32%. What's interest in this discussion we're having is that after the local climate, the second most significant factor that is impacting energy demand in households is not the characteristics of the building, but it's rather the behavior of its occupants. And one of the biggest needs is for heating and cooling. So this highlights the importance of understanding occupant behavior in order to more effectively reduce building energy consumption. It's also worth noting that reducing heating related energy consumption that we mentioned can help households adjust to the very high energy prices and save on energy bills, which is something that was very prominent over the past year. And we can foresee it being also difficult in some years to come. Of course, it is important to use more energy efficient appliances and renovate homes, but here we want to change energy consumption fast, and it's important to understand and support households in changing their behavior. Now, Nudge as a project is a Horizon 2020 project, and thus supports efforts to improve energy efficiency in general, which is very vital to achieve the European Union policy aims that have been outlined in the EU Green Deal, the Fit for 55 package, the Repower EU plan, and so on. And now, given that households are about 25% of greenhouse gas emissions in the Union, improving their energy efficiency is a very crucial task to decrease overall greenhouse gas emissions. And going a step further, since we rely very heavily on natural gas for space heating, it is important to reduce the consumption, to also reduce our dependence on fossil fuel imports, and also the geopolitical consequences that this might have. Now, for the Nudge project, if I'm to summarize in just 2 words, what we have aimed to do is to systematically assess and unleash the potential of behavioral interventions towards achieving high energy efficiency, and I continue, and to pave the way to the generalized use of behavioral interventions as a worthy addition to the policy-making toolbox. But what is nudging really? So nudging is a concept in behavioral economics that involves using rather subtle and indirect interventions to influence the behavior and decision-making of individuals or groups. The goal of nudging is to encourage choices that align with certain social or environmental goals without, and that's important, without limiting freedom of choice. Nudging can take many forms, such as changing the way choices are presented, framing information, or providing incentives that encourage desirable behaviors. And we want to say that there are a number of ways to nudge. You see here some of those, like facilitating nudges, where we set a default option in settings, reinforcement nudges, where we provide feedback on what the user might already be doing, social nudges, like social comparisons, confronting nudges. There are also fear nudges. We're not using those in the project. Now, one of the key objectives of the nudge project is to investigate the potential of technical interventions, mainly nudges, to influence energy consumption in households without using any financial means. And maybe a little bit on how this project is set up. So I mentioned that the first thing we want to do is to assess the behavioral of interventions. So we have designed a number of pilots to study the effects of nudges on heating behavior. And the second part is to develop some policy recommendations based on the outcomes. Hence, the project is split in 3 phases. In the first phase, we developed a very big survey and designed these interventions. In the second phase, that is actually ending in the next 2 months, we have been piloting these different types of nudges and collecting data to see which of those are more effective. And based on this work, we are finally at the level where we feel more confident to offer some of the policy recommendations. Very quickly about the pilots we have in the Nudge project. So we have pilots in 5 EU member states. They have different climates. They involve smaller and bigger families. They can be in energy communities, and they're also across age groups from children up to elderly. Some households heat with gas boilers, others with heat pumps, others with fuel oil, and also some have photovoltaics, and also some charge their electric vehicles. The common thing in all of those is that we use energy monitoring and management tools, and that's usually through smartphone apps. And that's the way we also test the nudging interventions. Now let's talk very briefly about the behavioral model that we have employed. To design these nudges, it's very essential to understand some key factors that drives people's intention to reduce energy consumption. Here we have drawn on 3 theories to build this behavioral model. As you see, these are a rather extended theory of planned behavior. We also use the prototype willingness model and the value belief norm theory. We have tested this model in a very comprehensive survey that was mentioned earlier of over 3,000 respondents from across Europe. And according to the results of the survey, we find that the 2 most important factors to consider are perceived behavior control and subjective norms that you see highlighted in your screens. These 2 factors really have the greatest impact on understanding and on predicting a person's intention to reduce energy consumption, and of course should rather be prioritized when developing similar measures. Other factors that are also important are attitudes, personal moral norms, and willingness. These also contribute to a person's intention, which later shapes their behavior. Now, when we're designing policy and measures, we want to reinforce these factors. So the question is, how do we improve perceived behavior controls? So this refers to an individual's perception of their abilities to control their behavior and it can be improved by showing how one can achieve a specific outcome. For example, to manage energy use, one can install programmable thermostats or smart home systems to control heating and cooling and replace older inefficient appliances. Here, what can be done to assist is exactly show how these devices will work, what are their default options, or where to find the appliances that they need. Now, from a policy perspective, to improve perceived behavioral control, more effective information campaigns and policies should be designed that directly target customers. And that can be including easy to access information or energy saving measures, examples of successful actions, and so on. We also find that intermediary actors, and here we focus on energy companies, can also be responsible for promoting energy efficiency and providing timely, accessible consumption data to consumers. These are all foreseen in the Energy Efficiency Directive, and it's important to proceed with its effective implementation. The reporting of this consumption data should also, as the EED says, allow customers to make informed decisions on their energy consumption and thus support energy savings. The second factor that's also very important are subjective norms. So these refer to the perceived societal pressure to engage in a certain behavior. And this perceived pressure can be used to also reduce energy demand. As an example, we can make the following recommendations here. One is to emphasize the importance of energy-saving behavior by highlighting, for example, the efforts that are being made across Europe in this case to reduce energy dependency and tackle high energy prices. I think we have all had our share of exposure over the past few months. And this can be done in many ways. One of those could be by sharing survey results that demonstrate the level of public support for energy conservation. And this really helps to reinforce the intent to reduce energy consumption. A second would be to highlight the role of the individual and their contribution to these larger goals. So we can do this by emphasizing the impact that they can make through reducing their own heating. We see that this is possible and helps reinforce the intent to reduce energy demand by making this important link to a larger cause. A third aspect that is important in shaping intent and then behavior is attitudes. Here we consider an attitude as a psychological construct that refers to a person's evaluation, feelings, tendencies towards an object. And in this case, it's towards energy saving. Now, to create a positive impact on attitudes for reducing energy consumption, here we see that we must develop strategies that positively influence environmental and financial concerns. Now, these strategies can, include information campaigns, outreach programs, training sessions, and all of this should provide practical tips and tools for conserving energy. It is also important to make energy-saving behavior as easy and as convenient as possible. For example, by providing access to rather affordable energy-saving products and services. Now, as you read, at the same time, we must take care to address any potential concerns about a loss of comfort when reducing energy consumption. And it's very much understandable that households may be hesitant to adopt energy-saving measures if they fear that this will impact their comfort levels. So we must ensure that consumption reductions have rather a very minimal impact on the comfort. For example, we can do this by improving insulation or air sealing or heating in specific periods of time or only up to a desired degree. Now, how to nudge towards efficient heating and cooling? To rather successfully design policies that use nudging based on the factors that influence energy consumption behavior that we I've just mentioned, it is very useful to create a few energy user profiles. Energy consumers in general can map onto these profiles quite nicely, and thus interventions can be tailored for increased effectiveness. In the Nudge project, we have identified 6 different types of energy users and the types of interventions that are likely to impact their behavior. Now, this allows us to establish a rather well-balanced mix that can contribute to reducing energy use through nudging. The first profile that you see here, we named it environmentally conscious and well-informed energy consumers. Now, these are rather idealistic energy savers who combine a high concern about the environment with good knowledge and a strong sense of personal responsibility for action. To reinforce their energy saving behaviors, we can have regular but rather sparse information about energy saving. Now, these, in our case, have been selected notification or simple marketing campaigns. This keeps their interest rather warm and helps to reinforce and raise awareness. So we see how these feedback and awareness interventions can encourage ongoing energy saving behaviors and contribute to making a further positive impact. The second profile is what we term concerned by lacking awareness energy consumers, who are characterized by a strong desire to protect the environment, and they also have an understanding of the negative consequences of their energy consumption. However, these consumers may be lacking practical knowledge on how exactly to save energy. Now, to address this group, we think that a facilitating nudge intervention can be implemented, and this can be, for example, turning energy-friendly operational settings on devices, thermostats, air conditioning, and we keep those as defaults to what would be most optimal for this user. And now, by doing this, it takes off the burden from learning what is appropriate and what is not for this particular user and their environment. And that makes energy-saving behaviors easier and more accessible. Another option that you see here is the reinforcement nudge. And here we use an intervention that is called just-in-time prompts. This intervention involves providing users with tips and with various recommendations the exact moment they are adjusting the settings of their devices that will impact their energy consumption. So by offering these rather timely and practical suggestions, individuals can increase their awareness of how to save energy, and they also make more sustainable energy choices. The third profile is this concerned but comfort-oriented profile that consists of individuals who have clear intentions of acting in an energy-friendly manner, but they are at the same time very highly concerned about their comfort. They are also worried about the monetary costs that can be associated with the high energy consumption that can be used. Now, to address this, we have proposed a confronting intervention. Here, the user is prompted to consider the various consequences of their actions. And this can, for instance, mean if they increase the target temperature of the thermostat or lower their air conditioning even further, then this intervention would show them the extra costs that this will cause. This could also be done by projecting the impact of this specific action at a cost at a monthly or annual level and highlight, of course, the increases in their energy bills. The aim here is really to be reminding of the users of the consequences of their energy consumption behavior in a very clear and direct way. And that may encourage them to make more conscious choices in the future. The fourth profile out of 6 describes materialistic energy consumers who have a rather low interest in energy saving behavior. And also there is a low anticipation that they will take any personal responsibility for their actions. However, they are concerned about the financial implications of energy saving activities. Here in this profile, the nudging intervention that we have used is a confronting nudge that reminds of the consequences. This is very similar to the previous profile. So again, here this intervention prompts a user to consider the consequences of their actions by highlighting the additional costs. So show what's the increase in energy bill on an annual level or monthly or so. The next profile are energy consumers who are prone to social influence. So these might have low intentions for heating behavior. However, they are more prone to social influencing. Here, therefore, we suggest, and we have been using social comparison that can be facilitated through various means on mobile phones, diagrams, through social platforms, from query response systems to help facilitate comparison with peers of similar demographics. Another effective intervention, again, in the realm of social influence nudges, is goal setting and commitment. And here, consumers might sign a formal commitment agreement to reduce their energy consumption in return for some non-monetary reward. And I would like now to reach the last profile. In a way, it's the most difficult profile, but of course, if it has to be addressed, and here you see, I guess, so far the difference on how different types of users need to be approached. So here we have the indifferent energy consumers. They have a rather low perception of their self-efficacy and are not very much concerned or even aware of environmental matters. Now, to nudge this group towards a more energy-saving behavior, there are 2 intervention types that we recommend. The one is facilitating nudges, and the second is reinforcement nudges. The facilitating intervention involves using default energy friendly operational settings in devices. As we mentioned earlier, thermostat, air conditioning equipment, standby, and so on. The reinforcement intervention, on the other hand, includes 2 strategies. The first is feedback and awareness that we have also seen earlier. And this can be provided through various tips and notifications, marketing campaigns, and it's aimed to sensitize this group of users and help overcome the reservations about efficacy of their behavior. The second one is to use it a hedonic goal, and this can be emphasized by stressing the big picture and the impact on significant things, possibly with some exaggeration, to help render an energy-saving goal. So now we went through the 6 profiles. This is an important piece of research that the Nudge project has done. Now, to conclude, I would like to summarize some of the key takeaways that it would be good to keep from the presentation. The first one is that it's very clear that household behavior plays a very crucial role in energy consumption when it comes. Secondly, we have highlighted 6 factors that impact motivation for behavior and the importance of personalized approaches. We recommend that policies and measures to reduce energy demand have to prioritize improving perceived behavior control, subjective norms, and attitude as the three top factors that influence behaviors and support behavior change. Third, it's also very important to keep in mind that individuals can be largely categorized according to 6 energy usage profiles that have just been presented. Keeping those in mind, we can be using personalized interventions and thus be much more effective for improving efficient energy use. And finally, it's also important to evaluate the effects of policies, for example, of information and awareness campaigns, and evaluate their effects on various user profiles to ensure the successful implementation. We have seen how measures that wish to promote energy savings can make use of default options, provide feedback and awareness, and set goals, among others, to encourage behavior change. Now, if this has been of interest to you and you wish to learn more about it, you're very much welcome to visit the webpage of the Nudge Project. That's nudgeproject.eu. You can also follow us on Twitter at nudgeh2020. A lot of what has been presented today is to be found, and much more actually, in the report that you see here, Profiling Energy Consumers, Psychological and Contextual Factors of Energy Behavior. And also this PowerPoint presentation can be found as a policy brief and as a poster for a more condensed version. We also have another poster with more nudge definitions. And of course, you will find a lot of very relevant material on our website, including the progress with the pilots. And in the next few months, you will also have access to the final reports with the final results that this work has achieved. The Nudge project is ending in autumn of this year. So until then, of course, you have access. It's possible to subscribe to our newsletter to receive our regular updates, follow us on this social media. And of course, if you wish, you can get in contact with myself or my colleagues and help redirect you if you need any additional information on what has been presented and even beyond. So that has been the presentation for today. I want to thank you all very much for joining and for your attention. I hope this has been of use. Now I will hand over to Sam, who wishes to say a few words on users' TCP.